In this video, we're diving into how we shot an 80-minute zombie film with a custom-built camera rig, why creating 360-degree sets is so important, and how I got $25,000 to make Canada's first POV feature film. I learned more in 2 weeks of shooting this movie than most people learn in 4 years of film school, and in today's video, we're diving into all of it. If you're afraid of failing on your next project or perhaps your first project, then this video will provide a roadmap to avoid some of the most common errors in filmmaking. We're diving into shooting strategy, cinematography, and where the film is now.
Action!
More guys!
Okay, cut!
All right, let's talk about everything that went wrong with this movie, starting off with the perspective. Now, shooting typical films, you have the luxury of editing, meaning you can cut your way out of scenes if they don't work, or just choose different coverage. We did not have that luxury. We were shooting from one angle, so basically every scene in the film was a one take, which made production speed up a lot faster, it made the editing process pretty seamless, but it made the creativity in post almost non-existent. What we got was what we had, and there was no way around that. The movie's entire runtime ended up being 80 minutes with a lot of long one takes. I decided to re-edit this, removing 40 minutes out of the cut into something better, faster, and stronger. Here's what I learned from cutting out 40 minutes of my feature. The first was that people, when they go into watching this, are expecting something fast, and I realized that the runtime of my film corresponded with just dragging on scenes way too long by having long, impressive one takes that made me feel better as a filmmaker, but not the audience better. I also learned the process of killing your darlings. There's a lot of scenes I left in the original film because I liked them. They looked cool, and we spent a long time shooting them, and I didn't want any of the cast members or myself sort of to feel defeated removing it. But now that I rewatch it without those, it feels way better, and I should have done that in the first place. But the full reason why I had to keep it this length, the long 88 minutes, to make a feature film, the movie has to exceed the length usually of 80 minutes. So an hour 20 is kind of the sweet spot. Anything over 45 minutes is technically a feature or a long short, and that's what I re-edited the film as, is a 50-minute film. It's way tighter, way better. If you want to go take a look at it, there's a link to it in the description below. But you might be wondering, well, how did you end up getting money to make something as unique or as weird as a first-person zombie film?
Go! David, come on!
Here's 3 things we did to get money for our film. First is proof of concept. We made a $250 short film that we shot with a group of friends in one day and then sent the movie to a bunch of festivals. This was not only just to make the film, but it also showed that we could make a first-person film for a shoestring budget. My next tip is to be just a young, dumb filmmaker. No matter where you are in your career, ask dumb questions and you might get great answers. When we finished our short film Dead Rush, it played a festival circuit, and then we ended up getting distribution through a zombie anthology. Like a dumb young filmmaker, I asked the distributor and producer if they'd be interested in making a feature film, and they said yes. Finally, use my originality formula. Take 2 things that are working and put your spin on it. The Walking Dead and GoPro cinematography were 2 big things at the time, and so I thought if I blended those with my cinematic vision of shooting on DSLRs, there could be something interesting and exciting. The originality from this gave us the $25,000 and built a crew of people who wanted to have something unique on their demo reel.
Oh, fuck. He's great. We good?
Yeah, boys.
Great
All right.
work. Awesome.
When you approach making a film, it should be approached the same way people build businesses, which you look at what areas you have covered and look at all your weaknesses. And the areas that you have a weakness in, fill that gap with someone who is an expert.
You need to get out of here! Go! Go!
Now, another reason why this angle of POV was just a complete disaster on a low budget was because we had to have 360-degree sets. So versus your typical film, when you have coverage, you can angle out things that don't work. We were seeing everything, so the set had to be completely dressed everywhere. And fortunate for us, we were able to lock in at around $2,000 this big warehouse location that we shot in for a week. But most things were like rusty and had this faded texture, but last minute I had ideas of like building a massive cross in the center of the space, or having these like weird sort of quarantine style rooms. Whatever decisions as a director you make, don't make them last minute. Always have them like figured out months prior so people can prep. But when you go into a space, of course, the creativity is going to start rolling. So you're going to have these like thoughts, be like, hey, what if we did this? Don't do that to people if you don't have to. While I felt confident in cinematography and angles that were fun, I didn't know how to communicate my full vision to a lot of the other collaborators, like actors, the production designer, or the assistant director. And in those sort of circumstances where you feel like a fish out of water, or you don't have the creative confidence to talk to people about stuff, ask anything. It's okay to be an idiot with closed conversations with your collaborators. It's not okay to be an idiot amongst people and they can see you being that on set.
Dead Rush is finished.
Dead Rush is dead.
When you make a movie, especially one that you put your soul into, there's a lot on the line, and I don't think I recognize the amount of issues that have grown from that experience because I never worked through them. And that's why I want to bring in the sponsor of this video, which is BetterHelp. I've started with a therapist from their selection. You sign up, you put your preferences in, and there's a window of time where they find a therapist that is catered to you. And as soon as they line me up with mine, she made me feel like I was unlocking a part of myself that needed to be seen. It's really helped me get through a lot of wiring or give aha moments to why I work the way I work. So if you're feeling even like you're getting creative blocks, or you're challenged with something, or wonder, why do I operate the way I operate? This is a great way to find a roadmap of yourself and understand why you are the way you are. They found the dialed in therapist for me right away, but if that therapist isn't right for you, they have a huge selection of therapists that then you can just say goodbye to this one, go to another one, and move on to the next. And you can hit a link in the description below to get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. With that said, let's go back into the trauma of making Dead Rush. Our primary filming location was this warehouse that we got kicked out of on the biggest day of the shoot. We had 100 extras lined up to come and play this massive scene. And the day of, I had the owner of the location call me and say, hey, you're not doing this. You wrecked a piece of our machinery that we had. Get out of here, film somewhere else. But fortunately, through some good conversations, we were able to actually get the location back, buenos, but we got kicked out of our second location, which was this gym space. Have a good conversation with the owner, because at the end of the day, they're actually like they have like the same power of like a distributor over your film or a producer. Because if they kick you out of the space your entire film's hinged on, you don't have a movie. And you get into movie mode and you go out of like humanly conscious of other people's spaces thing, especially when you shoot an apocalypse movie, like you're living in an apocalypse. You don't care. We shot this on the Sony a7S II with an Odyssey 7Q recorder. This thing was a pain in the ass. It would only record like 25-second clips. So despite me having an easy editing time making this film, most of the editing actually came from piecing together these recorded clips. Our cinematographer, Carl Janice, built this camera rig using a Sony a7S Mark II on the front, a wireless follow focus system on the sides, and then remote video transmission connected to our external recorder, which then would transmit to me and him on a screen around the corner. So all our main character had to do was wave his hands and move his head, and obviously do a lot more than that, and we could just yell action. We shot on the Sigma Art 18-35, usually living within the 18mm range for most of the film, but switching to the 16mm when we needed to show more in the frame. We didn't want the GoPro action cam look, so variable lenses made our film work beautifully. What you're looking for in a space is texture. So how does this wall either tell a story or make my main character pop out if the space really doesn't have any importance. Things that attract the audience's eyes more than the main character typically aren't the smartest production design elements. So bright colors or distracting patterns, unless you're Wes Anderson, are sometimes things you want to avoid. Now, what we wanted to do was create a very rich film with things that weren't distracting, but because we were shooting all one takes from wide angles, we wanted the audience to be able to gather in information if they were to press pause. Like a pro tip, if you're doing an apocalypse movie, you want to have park cars on an angle, like get every single one of your crew members to park cars on an angle, open their doors up, and like put a fog machine under one of the hoods of the car, and immediately it looks like an apocalypse. You throw some trash on that road, you're in for like an apocalyptic treat.
Action!
Another big problem of making this film was I worked with friends. And working with friends is actually, I think, a strong suit that I have now. At the time, I didn't understand how to work with people who were closest to me without getting diluted by ruining the friendship. And when you're working in a close personal space, working on a film is like working on a construction site in certain ways. People are driven by getting the project done and disregard emotions. I was experiencing issues with people across the board, whether it was family, close friends, the relationship that I was in. And what you want to do is try and separate your current film off your reality when you're in production. Don't take anything personally. People take things personally. It's just a given. And that was the hardest thing of making this film, was dealing with people's emotions.
There are going to be firearms on set.
Also, what I can say is years now after the film, every relationship that felt like it was rocky at the time is in a beautiful spot now. At the time when we were making these first-person movies, it sort of felt like we were going to revolutionize the first-person perspective, because of course that's the way you live life. And at the time, there was really no movies out there or any sort of roadmap to say this was or was not going to work. We were the first-person feature film to be made in Canada, and at the time, probably one of the few in the world to have ever been made. So there was no roadmap to make this film, and on top of that, we had no idea if an audience would be willing to experience something like this. We experience life this way, but does it work that way with a camera angle? After 2 weeks of filming and burning almost every single bridge I had professionally and in my small town, it was time to go into post-production. And the film edited insanely fast. I had the first cut done within a few weeks because most of it was shot with one takes. And by going by the script, which was around 70 pages, we had a 75-minute film with a long 5-minute credit sequence. It was the exact length that the producers asked for. Then for about another month, I re-edited the film and started it in post-sound. The post-production process of this film, while fast, was no easier than actually making the movie, because after everyone had left and gone to go on to new projects, I was stuck with this film that had all this trauma attached to it, and it was a disaster.
What the fuck is this fucking... David, where the fuck are you going? David, get back here! Shit! What the fuck?
Man, just stay there. Stay there. We have this under control.
Meg! Oh, Meg! Get your hands off her! That's my wife!
That's my wife! That's my wife! I've got the wife! Please!
Sir, get down!
That's my wife! Please. Meg. Just look at me. Just look at me. No! Oh, fuck! Shit! Fuck, David, get on there, come on! Dave, she's dead! David, look at her, she's dead! Come on, run! Run, David!
So in total, I had been stuck with this project a half a year longer than everyone else who was on it. Everyone else got to go and move on to new projects, and I was stuck with my nightmare. After 6 months of sitting on this film and working away on it, going through, basically trudging through mud, my closest friends in the horror community ripped it apart. Other fellow filmmakers just ignored even talking about it. And by the time we got to the actual festival itself, I wanted to just drink my sorrows away, hide in the back corner of the theater, and hopefully no one even recognized that I was there. But silver lining to this whole story, the film actually ended up playing pretty well and won Audience Choice Award, and it ended up getting global distribution with a company that I think went bankrupt when the movie came out. I haven't seen a dime from it. The contract I signed was horrible anyway, but that's what you do when you make your first feature. I highly recommend not signing a bad contract. If there's a lawyer to get a lawyer for this movie specific. And if you can't afford a lawyer, try ChatGPT. Just literally paste your contract in. But one of the parts that I did get signed on the contract was that if it didn't sell and I didn't get my money for it, I think I would claim ownership of the movie, which got me excited recently. And so as a birthday present to myself, I ended up re-editing the movie, cutting about 40 minutes out of this film I've been completely ashamed of into an edit that I'm pretty okay about. When you take the expectation of doing something excellent off the table and not try to pursue bad art, but just it's okay if it happens, to not be afraid of it, because there'll always be something you gain from it, whether it's a YouTube video talking about said movie. And filmmaking, as much as if it's an art form and a profession, it's also an experiment. Even the biggest directors are still making movies that are kind of weird and different and have things that miss the mark and things that hit the mark. But the only way that you're going to be able to get that target hit is to actually fire the arrow. So go do that. After Dead Rush premiered at its film festival, when we ended up getting into some crazy meetings with getting like $1 million movie offers and like had to pitch a bunch of cool scripts, to going to LA and meeting with Joel Silver's studio, one of the producers of The Matrix and like a bunch of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. And I thought that was going to be it. My career was about to launch off. A lot of, oh wow, very cool, very good. Man, wow, what are you gonna do next? And even like money being talked about? Zero. There was 0 people who ended up pursuing any of those things. I thought that was going to be my ticket. And there'll be lots of projects that dangle the ticket above you. But the real thing is the pursuit, and that is the real ticket. You'll ask any big filmmaker about it. The big break is happening when you're making the film. The film's success is short-lived unless it catapults you to the next one.